Killer robots, the stuff of science fiction, but it's becoming all too real. There's a race for AI and unmanned weapons that could change the face of warfare. In this special report, we look at how the Chinese regime is harnessing its vast reaches of data and turning it into a weapon, where that data is coming from, and how Americans are unwittingly lending a hand. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Drones, they're popping up everywhere, from delivering goods to filming fancy camera shots for vloggers to speeding up delivery times. But they're also being used to hunt down people.
Zhejiang University, a major military technical university in China, has perfected self-guiding hunting drones that are able to navigate their way through a bamboo forest to find their targets, and they don't need satellite navigation.
The drones are able to do that through something called swarm technology. Arthur Herman, Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute and Director of the Quantum Alliance Initiative, explains exactly how it works.
It's teaching drones how to mimic the behavior of birds in flight or bees in a swarm, or this is why it's called swarm technology. And just as we are able to, we are always marveling at the way in which birds all seem to sort of fly in a spontaneous formation, avoiding hitting objects and turning and twisting together in numbers that run into the hundreds, right? When you see them, it's an amazing sight. Well, just imagine being able to do that with small drones operating in a similar swarm formation, moving almost simultaneously and spontaneously and twisting and turning in different directions to go out and seek their target.
But there are fears those drones could be used to kill.
Imagine each of those drones is carrying a weapon. It's carrying a bomb or it's carrying some kind of lethal device, which it is able to deliver on target, and that is able to, in the process, then overwhelm any defenses that are set up to shoot down one or two or even a dozen drones coming in on the attack.
Facing off against a killer pack of drones versus just one of them also makes the devices harder to defend against.
Because you're dealing with drones that are now coming by the hundreds in this sort of job, overwhelming your defense systems, and no matter how many you shoot down, one of them will get through and carry out its deadly mission.
With that kind of weaponry in mind, where do we begin in learning to defend against it? Rick Fisher, Senior Fellow at the International Assessment and Strategy Center, describes what the U.S. is doing to combat swarm technology.
We're working on the development of mobile, low power to high power laser systems, and also microwave systems that can disable swarms of drones. Microwave energy would essentially fry components, circuitry within the drone and cause it to fail.
Now, as for how these advances would change warfare,
artificial intelligence combined with machine learning and unmanned systems, be they in space, in the air, on the surface of the sea, under the sea, or on the ground, all have tremendous potential for expanding the scope of warfare, allowing commanders to put machines out in front of soldiers and lives, but also to vastly accelerate the pace of warfare.
And in this race, no one wants to be left behind.
What we colloquially call drones, the Defense Department and military experts call them unmanned platforms or unmanned systems. They represent the future of air power. They represent the ways in which control and dominance over the air domain in the future will be dependent.
And right now, the race for airspace is on.
Both China and the United States are working on enabling their fifth-generation pilots and even 4+ generation aircraft pilots to control what we call loyal wingmen. These are unmanned aircraft that can fly far more violently, be far more maneuverable than a manned aircraft, can carry payload, bombs, missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, and they're expendable.
How does that translate to use in a mission?
If a pilot can send out four or five loyal wingmen in front of them to fight an incoming enemy squadron, that squadron has to fight these unmanned aircraft that are probably much more maneuverable, and because of artificial intelligence are probably thinking faster than the pilot, and that's a great advantage.
And with these advances come risks.
Artificial intelligence and self-learning program, if you will, in just the sort of software confrontation levels of combat that we face every day, cyber warfare, electronic warfare, even political warfare on social media, programs that are powered with an artificial intelligence or an ability to learn are able to overcome their adversaries far more rapidly.
That adaptability could spell danger for an opposing side. And with technology packing that strong of a punch, lagging development means high risk.
The consensus right now among U.S. experts is that China's got something of a lead on us, which is ironic because, of course, artificial intelligence and machine learning technology really originated here in the United States.
But it also depends on perspective.
In terms of the individual pieces of technology, we're probably slightly ahead to pacing what the Chinese are able to produce. The real emphasis, though, is on the commitment to invest in all of these technologies across the board.
Some areas are farther ahead of the game than others.
The U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy, however, are investing heavily in unmanned combat systems that can be enhanced with artificial intelligence. But I think we're pacing the Chinese. We may not be ahead of them. They're definitely very close.
Even Google's former CEO has weighed in.
Rick Schmidt, former CEO of Google, has said that we have lost ground to the Chinese and that we can pretty much expect the Chinese to maintain leadership in this area. And that's worrisome for so many different reasons.
Among those reasons, privacy is near the top of the list.
The most important issues that realize that all of this information technology and the new advances that have taken place in the last couple of decades really raise it, and that is the issue of privacy. Who's going to have access to data? Who's going to control and manipulate the data that feeds artificial intelligence technology that is supplied in abundance in our wireless technology, including future wireless technology like 5G and then ultimately 6G.
And there's a difference between how the two main players have been going about it. First up, Communist China. Because
of the ubiquity of artificial intelligence as a technology for surveillance, for military and weapons systems, as well as as a commercial technology in terms of providing an analysis and access to data. For all these kinds of reasons, the Chinese have just been going at it, absolutely breakneck speed with no sense of restraints.
Meanwhile, in the U.S.,
we still are entangled in a debate about, is artificial intelligence and machine learning really an ethical practice? Is it the kind of thing that we really should be investing large amounts of money? Is there a danger that we're going to create, autonomous machines that will take over from their human creators and human users? Are we going to end up with a situation in which the machines not only are smarter than we are, but know it, and therefore sort of say we can dispense with these human beings and let's just carry on things and run the world for ourselves?
Those debates, while important, could derail us from the AI race. A race that, if we lose, will have consequences.
While the Chinese feel no such compunctions, do not worry for a moment about the ethical considerations with regard to artificial intelligence and its use for surveillance, for police, for developments in police tactics and operations, let alone military operations, has given them a big advantage.
But how is the Chinese regime getting that edge? Let's look at where China is sourcing its vast data trove.
China has found that among the key enablers in its acquisition of the data that it needs to run its big AI programs are American companies, that they're very happy to pass along this information and pass along data because they don't think anything about it. You know, it's just numbers, it's just information.
But what might not seem significant can make a major splash when enough of it is put together like pieces of a jigsaw. That's when a bigger picture appears.
That even information that we would think about as being fairly insignificant about, about where we go for lunch every day, that all of this these are all small pieces of what becomes a large picture, a large strategic picture, when it's put through the artificial intelligence mills as a way to understand what's going on and to gain a larger panoramic picture of where their chief adversary, the United States, is and what's happening.
Given that advantage, how can the U.S. counter it?
The most important ethical issue right now is keeping a country like China's hands off of our data. That's the way in which, not so much what our government will do with it, but what they're doing with it and what they continue to do with it.
Besides blocking Beijing's access to our data, Herman lays out 2 more steps that he says will help the U.S.
We have to realize that that the commercial applications and developments of AI are already here. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's already underway. It's already taking place.
Given that, the next question is,
how does the government, how does our defense and national security establishment channel those artificial intelligence applications and technical know-how in ways that bolster our national security? What are going to be the key ways in which we can keep up with and eventually overtake China in terms of its development and applications of artificial intelligence?
But countering this level of technology isn't a one-man game. Sometimes the best way to tackle an issue is through calling in reinforcements. In this case, that means teaming up with allies.
We cooperate with our allies. We assemble databases on enemy systems. The F-35, for example, it constitutes almost a military alliance in itself because of all the shared systems and all the shared training that has to take place. But the F-35 is enabled largely because of a global database that is constantly updated every day and shared with our allies and other F-35 customers to ensure that aircraft is at its peak performance.
But with new developments and smarter, faster AI, how will the race to weaponize it play out? Will the U.S. maintain an edge or fall behind?
We can't put these artificial constraints on ourselves based upon some, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Rise of the Machines, future scenarios that we think might be possible in the remote future.
And what happens if the U.S. does fall behind and Americans' data lands into an adversary's hands to do with as they please? As experts point out, there's a balance, a way to maintain our privacy while still advancing our know-how. And as time goes on, those advancements are becoming more necessary to make sure our private data stays private. That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntt.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.